Okay, I'm going to start. So thank you guys for being here today. We will be talking about what's new in XtraBackup, covering the latest developments we have been doing on the product. And my co-speaker will arrive soon. He will be talking about cloud backups and migrations. So my name is Marcelo Altmann. I work in Percona for about 7 years. I'm currently working as a software engineer. I work on the XtraBackup project, and I'm author of a few key features that have been introduced in the product already. For example, the FIFO data sync that I will be talking today, memory estimation, Zstandard compression support that has been added 2 releases ago, some work done on XB Cloud, exponential backup for you to keep retrying your backups if they fall halfway through due to some issue with your cloud provider, instance profile to help with automation, and I'm also responsible for the integration of the KMIP and KMS keyring components. Matthew, that will be arriving soon. He is a principal architect here at Percona. He is a consultant in professional services. He also is lead of training. He deals with all sorts of things like operation and troubleshooting, scaling and optimizing. He's an expert on proxy SQL, group replication, and XtraDB cluster. So, quick survey of hands. So, who is still on 5.7 here? Okay, good. Anything that is stopping you guys from migrating to 8.0? Out of memory errors on. Okay, so memory footprint on 8.0. Okay. What about you? Anything? Developers. Okay. No, that's fair. Who has heard about XtraBackup? Who uses XtraBackup? Yeah. Who has built automation around? So where do you guys actually store your backups? Like locally, streaming? All streaming. Okay. Do you have notice any? It's streaming to object storages, or do you have some local object storage like Min.io or some S3 API like? Okay. Who uses something else to backups rather than XtraBackup, like logical backups? Does anyone? Yeah. Okay, good. MySQL dump, okay.
That is still best practice, right?
It is. XtraBackup, it's a physical backup. So if you have fragmentation, some types of corruption, they will be bring over as the physical copy. Logical backups, they are good because they will defragmentate your data. Depends on the type of corruption. Like, for example, if it's on the secondary index, you will be able to run a select star, which is going to bring up the primary key, so the corruption will not be transferred over as part of the backup. So, yeah, most of you already know about XtraBackup, but we are an online physical tool for backups. Online meaning you can still write data while you are making a consistent copy of your data. We have incremental and differential backups, which means like if you have a huge data set and only a portion of these changes every day, you can use incremental backups to just copy the delta that changes since your last full backup. We have compression, streaming, as some people already mentioned that they are using. So you do not require to store the backup locally. You can either ship to another server or object storages. We have support for encryption tables as well. So let's start with what is new in XtraBackup. We will start talking about encryption. We have been working in integrating key MIP. Anyone familiar with key MIP? So Barrett knows. So basically, it's a key management interpolarity protocol. We introduced these on both Percona server and XtraBackup in version 8.0.27, and on 8.0.32 releases ago, we have transitioned this to GA. KMIP, basically, it's an open standard protocol developed by an organization named Oasis. It's an open protocol, an open API that if you feel you can implement it. On the Oasis sites, they mention they have verified and validated more than 42 commercial available KMIP products, like companies that you can purchase KMIP. Some of them are like HashiCorp, VMware, Oracle, and IBM. So if you want to use encryption at rest with MySQL, it only comes with the file plugin, like the community version of MySQL. And with that's not secure. It's not meant for production because the key remains, the master key remains unencrypted on the disk. So if someone getting access to your server, they will have access to the master key. So if you are using Percona server, so you can use KMIP, and backups are also compatible with that. For people that are using Amazon, we have introduced it as well KMS, which is the key management services that Amazon provides. It was introduced on 8.0.28, and we transitioned this to GA as well 2 releases ago on 8.0.30. So if you are already using the whole infrastructure of Amazon, you can use these as just a services that you pay, and then you don't have to configure any extra services like a KMIP, a Vault server, or anything like that. KMS, it works very similar as the keyring file, but the difference is that the master key that remains stored in disk, it is encrypted by the key that we fetch from the KMS keyring plugin. So it's another alternative if you are looking for data at rest. Redo log follow thread, for people that are familiar with MySQL, we originally, since the beginning of InnoDB, we had IBlog 0 and IBlog 1 that were being used on not a round robin, but on a circular fashion. On 8.0.30, Upstream has released a complete redesign of redo logs. Now they are used like a clock type. They are not more the clock type. Now we have like 32 files that appears and disappears. Once your 32 files get full, we delete the files with the lower index number and create new ones. This has been a big challenging for us because if you think about XtraBackup and what make it online is copying redo logs. So basically we had to change something that was the heart of the tool on version 8.0.30. Has been super difficult because there are other complexities. For example, XtraBackup, it's used as a key part of Percona XtraDB cluster as well. Every time you provision a new node, you do what is called snapshot transfer, and that uses XtraBackup. So there are scenarios where you will be using 8.0.29 on a donor and 8.0.30 on your joiner. So we not only had to redesign the redo follow thread, but we also had to make it compatible with both layouts of redo log. But one super cool thing about the redo log is that after 8.0.30, Upstream had introduced these functionality to register a redo log consumer. With the clock type redo log, there were chances when XtraBackup is falling behind, it can the server can overwrite a redo log position that is ahead of the one that you have to copy. That's what we call log wraparound. With 8030 onwards, we can register XtraBackup as a redo log consumer. So if XtraBackup is falling behind, the server will not be able to get rid of the particular redo log that XtraBackup is copying. So we use the mentality here that you can choose either I want to favor my writes on the server and I just restart the backup in case it happens, or I want my backup to succeed and I don't care if it has to stop or stall the writes until XtraBackup is able to catch up. This is disabled by default, but you can enable by passing register redo log consumer. Page tracking, it's another nice feature that has been added as a component since component on the server since version 8.0.18. But XtraBackup only started to make use of it since version 8.0.27. Again, 8.0.30, we transitioned this to GA. And this is basically used to discover what data changed since your full backup versus your incremental. We had something similar for people that are using 2.4. We had what it's called change page bitmap that does exactly the same. But since version 8.0.30 on 8.0, we decided to deprecate ours and just inherit what upstream sends to us because there's no reason to maintain a functionality that does exactly the same thing. So by default, we do not use page tracking. This is a component that you have to install on your server. Without page tracking, we do what it's called brutal force. Basically, once you finish a full backup, you have a stamp, a last sequence number stamp, and you will copy all the pages that has changed since this LSN. The default way to do is to go and check every single page and see what is the LSN stamp that particular page has and compare if it's newer or older than the LSN stamp that you have from your full backup. So as you can imagine, if you have a terabyte of data, this is a super resource and time consuming task. So page tracking comes to solve this issue. Page tracking ships the responsibility to track the pages to the server. So there is an API that once we finish the full backup, we tell the server, look, I will want to know every single page that changed since now. When we start XtraBackup running an incremental, we have an API that we can call to the server and tell, give me the range, the pages that has changed since this range of LSNs, and then we will be able to go directly to only the pages that had changed. So not only page tracking, but incremental, they are super useful when you have just a portion of your data that changes. If your data set changes like more than 50%, we don't think that it's advisable to use because there won't be any real benefit. Some tests that we have been done with like a small data set, but 100 giga data set with 1% of the data changed. Without page tracking, it took 300 seconds or 5 minutes. And with page tracking, it took only 30 seconds. So the other thing to think about here is that the faster your backups are, less redo log you will be copying. The less redo logs that you copy, the faster it's going to be your prepare phase as well. So this is another thing to have in mind, that page tracking not only helps on the backup phase, but it also helps you on the prepare phase. Zstandard compression, it's another cool feature that we have introduced also in 8.0.30. Zstandard, for the ones that are not familiar, is just a fast lossless compression algorithm that has been developed by the guys on Facebook. It has been all open sourced. It's available on the majority of the current operational systems. And one of the main targets of Zstandard is to outperform LZ4, which is one compression algorithm that has been in the market for quite long. We have 3 types of compressions on XtraBackup that you can use. Zstandard has been introduced and is still on tech preview. LZ4, SGA, and QPress SGA as well. For people that are using 2.4, we have only QPress. But we have faced some issues with QPress, which is this is a no longer maintained tool. So we had the guys from Amazon, for example, they found some CVEs that we have to go and fix ourselves because no one is being maintaining this tool anymore. So we have decided that QPress it's no longer be supported on XtraBackup. We plan to transition Zstandard to GA on .34 release. On 35, we will be removing the option to take new backups with QPress, and Zstandard will become the default. We will keep this QPress compatibility because all the backups that people have been taking up to the time we remove the ability to take new backups, they still need to decompress those. So decompress will still remain there, but new backups won't be able to use this. And here it's a graph of Zstandard versus LZ4 being used in XtraBackup. So we have from 109 giga to half terabyte, and we can see that Zstandard outperform LZ4. Not only in the conversion ratio, but also it's faster to compress and decompress. And if you look, it can bring you your data like 544 giga to 229, so it's more than half of the original size. The conversion ratio will depend entirely on your data. This was done just with a sysbench type of workload. Right. I don't have the graph here. I can show you. I have this on a blog post that shows that, but it's faster. It uses less resources than Zstandard. Sorry, than LZ4. And compression time to compress and time to decompress is also faster than LZ4. So it was an easy choice to choose what's going to be the new default. Right. The next new feature that we have added, again on 8.0.30, I don't know if you noticed, but 8.0.30 has a lot of new features, was smart memory estimation. Don't know if everyone is familiar what is the prepare phase on XtraBackup, but basically the prepare phase is what the server does when it has to do a crash recovery. We have a bunch of redo logs that we need to apply. We have an area in memory that we can parse those redo log, group them to which particular page they belong. Once this particular area in memory gets full, we call this a batch. We load the whatever, how many pages it's required here. By default, we can currently we can load up to 512 pages. If more than those number of pages, we need to activate the LRU, which will be flushing pages to disk and bringing new pages to memory. And once this batch is done, a new batch will start until we have gone through all the redo log records that we have to apply. By default, we have this memory area with 128 mega, but this is not a fit for most of the workloads. You can adjust this amount of memory by using use memory on XtraBackup. However, there is no way to know how much is enough. So with smart memory estimation, we have changed the way the backup works. So while we are doing backup, we are calculating the amount of redo log records and which pages they belong. So we have an estimation of how much memory will be required for to execute the prepare in one go. Our goal here is to the prepare phase to run in one single batch, because if there are more than one record that belongs to the same page and they happen in different batches, that particular page will have to read and flush to disk multiple times. The way to use, this is disabled by default. It's still a tech preview feature. We have not transitioned to GA. So if you want to use, you can use estimate memory when you are doing backup, so it will collect the amount of memory it will be required. And then when you are using prepare, we base the memory on free memory that we read from the machine. So use free memory percentage. You will specify how much memory, how much of the free memory you wanna utilize here. So for example, if you put 50%, it will use 50% of the free memory, and then it depends, like if that crosses the amount of data that you need, you'll have more than one batch. So you can tune that until 100% of free memory to achieve the goal of running everything in one go. Say that again? See, if you don't pass anything? Right. Yeah, you can pass from 0, which disables that. By default, it is disabled, but our idea is that the same, when it becomes GA, the same estimate memory will be enabled by default during backup, and 50%, it's what we are thinking, it's going to be enabled on the prepare. You can pass then from 0 to disable if you don't want that to run on prepare until 100%. So then the goal is to do the prepare in one go. Here are some examples comparing the default versus estimate memory. So you can see, like, for example, with 64 tables, the time to prepare a backup came down from 2,000 seconds to 211. Again, yeah, the memory footprint, it's going to be higher with estimate memory, but we are trying to solve the problem of time to recover here. So if you have that memory to spare, why not use? Next thing that we have been working is the EMI instance profile. So who uses Amazon here must be familiar with there is a way for you to attach an instance profile to an EC2 instance. And this instance profile, you are able to give credentials to a specific bucket. So this is used when you are doing streaming, either saving the backup to the cloud or retrieving the backup from S3. With this feature, XtraBackup, it's able to read the local instance, EC2 instance API, and fetch the keys that are required for the tool to connect to an S3 bucket. Those tokens, which is what XtraBackup retrieves, they have a time to live of 6 hours. If any case your backup takes more than 6 hours, it will be automatically renewed. So your backup will continue even though the token has been expired. And these, the main driven for these was people that use automation, Circle CI, and Kubernetes. There is one last token password they have to configure in all these YAML files. Next thing that we have been doing and changed is the dual release cycle. The people that are on 8.0 here know that every new 8.0 version there is breaking change, as I mentioned, the redo log follow thread that took us like 2 to 3 months to redo. The 8.0 releases, they have been taking longer for you to have a compatible version. I think since version 8.0 something, we have blocked by default to take a backup with XtraBackup version that has lower number than the upstream because of those breaking changes. Some of those changes were only seen during prepare phase, so people were taking backups, thinking, okay, I have a backup, just had an incident, I have to restore, oops, it doesn't work. So because of that, we have been blocking taking backups if your releases of server and XtraBackup, they do not align. So because we were taking a lot of time to implement those breaking changes on XtraBackup, we have decided to do what we call the dual release cycle. So basically nowadays we have 2 XtraBackup versions for each upstream server version. The first release, our goal is to have a compatible version as soon as possible. So the only thing we do on this particular release is to merge the upstream code. So you have a compatible version and you can still running on exact same features that you had on XtraBackup from previous version, but compatible with the latest version of Marcelo. And then later we follow with a bug fix, a feature release, which incorporated bug fixes and new features. Again, the goal here is to short the gap on the releases. And the main thing here is that we pay a lot of attention on QA. So QA is what takes the majority of the time of a particular release here at Percona. The more features, the more bug fixes that you have, the longer this takes. So with having just the particular merge, we were able to short the release cycle. Here it's one example of 8.032, which was the first version we have been doing this. With this, we have been able, like the actual code merge took us 9 days, 9 calendar days, like here it's including weekends. Code review took us 6 days for the other peers to review the code, adjust changes, suggest changes, and optimize the code. And 26 days is the time that took to actually QA the release and make sure that every single backup scenario restored from previous version to latest version, it was working. So that's how important QA is for us. And by reducing the amount of changes that we have on the releases, we can deliver a compatible release in a shorter period of time. Next, it's dictionary cache. These, yes, please.
So are you recommending then that we don't upgrade the server until the XtraBackup release is ready?
Yes, if you rely on XtraBackup for your backups, yes, because if, for example, right now we are on 8.032. It's the latest XtraBackup version. Latest upstream version is 8.033. They don't work by default. If you try to take a backup now with the latest version of XtraBackup, it will say there is a server version mismatch. You can disable that, but then you are on your own risk. This particular version, on our tests, we have not seen any breaking changes, but we don't advise. We did not run that extensive QA to make sure 8.032 it's compatible with 33. We are going to do that when we release 8.033. So if you rely on XtraBackup, we always advise you to hold until XtraBackup has a compatible release with the server version.
Thank
you. You're welcome. So data dictionary, the work it's basically done. We think we are going to deliver this on 8.032 feature release, which is not the next one, the following one. But basically this changes how tables are open for rollback. Basically the prepare phase, it uses the Iris protocol. It has 3 phases. The first phase we analyze, like we group the redo logs. The second phase we apply those redo logs. So, but this is done on the physical level. We just go, we know what file we have to open, what offset we have to write that particular data, and then we go physically on the disk and write that data. But rollback, they are more a logical thing that we have to adjust the page rollback pointers. Up to now, there was no dictionary cache, what means that we did not know which tables we had to open. So we have to go and open every single table on your database in order to run rollback. If you had one rollback to perform and we have 1,000 tables, up to now you have to open 1,000 tables. So those tables are memory structures and they cause high memory usage. So I don't know if you guys can see, but here there are two examples of the same backup without dictionary cache and with the dictionary cache. You can see a spike on memory utilization. That's when the rollback phase started. And here are some numbers about this particular test. The test has been performed with 3 million tables. Here the size of the table doesn't matter. Without data dictionary, it took roughly 2 hours to complete, and XtraBackup used 40 giga. With dictionary cache, it took 1 hour and 15 minutes, and it was 36% faster, but the gain comes on the memory. It utilizes only 2 giga, which is like 20 times less memory. So for people that use XtraBackup and have a huge number of tables, this feature is going to be super useful. The next one, it's the FIFO data sync. It has been introduced on 8.0.33. We also want to introduce this on 8.0.33. Again, the work, it's been under review, but we are pretty confident that we will be able to finish until that. Basically, it uses FIFO name pipes to do streaming. Currently, we do streaming to standard out, and standard out has some throughput issues. It has become a bottleneck on environments where you have faster disks and you have faster throughput through the Ethernet. FIFO, it allows you to use true multi-thread with XtraBackup and XB Cloud or XtraBackup and XB Stream. With FIFO, we have been able to saturate 10 gigabits Ethernet. So this is how XtraBackup works in terms of streaming at the moment. So as you can see, we have parallelism on XtraBackup. You can read multiple files. Do you have a question? Oh, no, sorry. It can read multiple files in parallel, but we have only one pipe to stream that particular data. On XB Cloud, it's the same thing. We have like multiple slots on a worker queue, but we can only read from one particular pipe. And the way it works with XB Cloud, we do a synchronous request to the object storage that you are using. We don't wait for that to finish. We just put that request as a callback on a worker queue, and then we have an event handler that keeps reading the worker queue to see if it has finished that or not. With the new design, with FIFO, we have true parallelism on the OS, where we can use FIFO data files, and we have been able to then have multiple worker queues that can read the data in parallel. So here is some example of a test with 1 terabyte put. If you see down here, this is the maximum throughput we have from both machines, which is virtually 10 gigabits. And here on the first example there is the time that took to push 1 terabyte of data utilizing the current standard out. And the second one, as you can see, is the time and the period that took to push the same terabyte utilizing 8 pipes with FIFO. So the numbers are, again, with standard out, we have been able to saturate only 1.8 gigabits, and it took 1 hour and 30 minutes, hopefully, to push this 1 terabyte of data, while with FIFO, was able to saturate the network, which is like the virtually 10 gigabits, and it took only 16 minutes. So it's a huge, huge improvement here. So what is next? We want to hear from you, our users. If there are anything that you are missing on the tool that you think will be useful, please either contact us. There is a Slido here that you can post things anonymously. We will love to hear your feedback. So things that we are in the research phase that is not close to be delivered, but it's on our roadmap. The first one, it's full page tracking. We basically want to change a bit how XtraBackup work while it's copying the data files to use page tracking and have less redo logs to copy during this phase. The aim of these is to make the prepare phase faster because you have less redo logs to apply. The other thing we are starting to research is to reduce the time the instance remain locked during the backup. So basically now, when you do a backup, we do not tolerate DDLs during the backup. So we have to take lock tables for backup, then we copy all the tables, and once we finish the backup, then we release this particular log. So the work we are trying to do here, we want to do an optimistic copy of the files and have a component on the server that will keep track which tables have suffered DDL during this period. And then we have a second copy phase that is much shorter, and we will only copy, then under lock, the tables that have changed during the backup. So these will then allow you, a lot of people do need DDLs to run, and running XtraBackup does interfere a bit because of the DDLs. So we are super excited to start to research this, and it has been something that people have been asking for a long time. And the last one is selective table backup. Basically, we want to enhance the experience to restore just a single table from a backup. Today, you have to go create the table, drop, discard table space, run, prepare with export, copy the files, go to MySQL instance, import table space. That's the work you have to do for one table. If you have a database with 100 tables, you have to do this 100 times. So we want to make XtraBackup able to extract the DDL from the IBD files, and you'll just point an instance, and it will do the work for you. So that's it. Now on stage, Matthew Boehm. Right. We do not advertise the release dates in advance because we work in a as fast as possible scenario without compromising quality. So for us, it all depends how much pain is the upstream merge. As I mentioned, 8032 we were able to do in 30 calendar days. 8030, which is the one that changed the whole redo log, it took us roughly 3 months, so 3 times more. Then we advertise like the release notes when it has been released, but we do not advertise like we are going to release next week. No, and it's common. Like upstream also does not do that. Like you cannot see when 8034, which is the next upstream release, will be released. No, for Oracle MySQL as well.
Oracle doesn't release that either. They don't tell you when the next version is coming out.
Yeah.
No, but they have the quarterly release.
They have like the second Tuesday at something, but it's not always that day. It could be 1, 2, 3 days later. And we act on that. Like our releases are aligned with upstream release. So every time upstream release 8034, for example, which is the next one, we will start to work and we will release our version as soon as we have finished and completed all the QA that has to be done. Okay.
Hello, gotta get used to that. Hello, everybody. How are y'all? Okay, so I just wanted to come in and talk just a little bit of some examples, some real world scenarios. I've had a lot of clients recently that have been trying to move either from on-prem into cloud, or they're moving from like EC2 VM into something like RDS, and the best tool to do that is XtraBackup. And so I just wanted to take a few minutes out of Marcelo's presentation, since he's already talking about XtraBackup, just to basically kind of showcase how you do that. How do you use our tools to do migrations, whether you're going on-prem or you're going to EC2 and going into something like RDS. So first of all, I just want to kind of show a very simple, just for reference, very simple backup style. So this is just a simple local backup of how you can do that with XtraBackup. I'm using the new because he talked about it, using the new Zstandard compression, and I'm streaming everything out to XVStream, and we're backing this all up into one file. So this is basically a single file, your entire database stored in one file. Make sense? Pretty simple. There are other options. Don't use tar. Tar is an option to do it. So instead of streaming to XtraBackup, you can stream to tar. The downside with tar is that you get zero parallelism, because tar can't handle parallel streams of input. So you can't do that. So your backup will actually go faster by using something like XVStream, and it'll be smaller now that we have Zstandard compression as well. So don't do that. Using tar also actually requires local disk space. So even if you were to stream over a network connection, but you were using tar, you would still need temporary table space on that same server equal to the largest table in your database in order for basically to stage that information to tar and then send it over the network. So just stay with tar. It's old. Anybody know what tar actually stands for? Tape archive. The only reason why I know that is because in college I had a tape drive in my server, and I actually literally used tar to rewind and tension the actual tape in the cartridge. It was like totally old school, but I still got like 4 gigs on a Traven 6 tape or something. It's pretty cool. But yeah, so don't use tar. Okay. I love the streaming backup. We do. I'm the lead trainer for MySQL at Percona, and we do exercises in this in our backups and recovery class. So I love streaming. I love showing people that I can back up and basically create a replica in just like 2 commands. Ish. So it's very simple. This is the one that comes from our documentation and our recipes and examples of basically taking a backup, using our XVStream, and sending it to another server. So zero disk access in terms of writing to whatever server I'm running XtraBackup on. So that's awesome. So this doesn't have to be another MySQL server. This could be your backup server, your NAS, or whatever you want to, all with one command. And of course, that's SSH, so it's encrypted in transit as it's going over the network as well. So that's really cool. You can also do this option. This is what we use in our training classes to create replicas. So on your new MySQL server, you set up SOCAT to listen on some random port, and then you start sending all the data, and you use SOCAT. Just the old school is a netcat NC. So you're familiar with netcat. Netcat is old. Everybody's moving over to SOCAT, whatever. They do exactly the same thing. SOCAT, no, take that back. SOCAT does a whole lot more, but at this level, they do the same thing. They're just listeners for random stuff, for TCP traffic. So you take the backup, again, zero disk access on this side, sends it over, and this XVStream will automatically extract it as it's being received over the network.
Any gotchas from NetCat?
No, I haven't, though, because our training used to do that. Our training used to use NetCat, and it was just because it's simple, just netcat-l, then pipe netcat, no difference. The command is just slightly different, because SOCAT can do socket listening, and it can do all the TCP UDP stuff that NetCat can't do, so there's just more options to it. But for the same effect, it's the same. It's just, you just got to learn that. It's still the same port. It's still just, dashes and stuff like that. Yeah, not a big deal.
Matthew, you said it's encrypted. What's doing the encryption?
On this one, nothing. I'm sorry. On this one, SSH is doing the encryption.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Yeah. So it's just the in transit.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just the in transit. SSH handles the encryption for you because it's a encrypted connection. There's none here.
Got it.
Yeah, no, there would be no encryption on this one yet. So be safe.
I have a question on that. So if you use a custom data directory, I'm assuming you have to change URL with MySQL.
Yeah. If you got a custom, data directory, you can put it wherever you want. Speaking of encryption, if you do want to encrypt your backups, you can use that same functionality of XVStream and pipe it into OpenSSL, use a better password than that, but then it's still a single file. It's still an XB stream, but it's an encrypted XB stream at that point. So that way you can do that. Cool. Just wanted to show that. So it's in the slides, and you give an example for it. There are more examples, more complicated examples, again, on our documentation. You go into XtraBackup, and there's a whole recipes, how-tos sections that show you some more examples of these, but I thought these were going to be the most important ones. Everybody's concerned about security, so encrypt your backups, yeah.
Is there a way to obfuscate the password so that if someone guesses the commands that are running?
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, there's plenty of those are all options to open SSL command. So you can look at the documentation for OpenSSL on how to either ask it, or you can provide it a key path, or use something like Vault to do your key management. Yeah, you can do all that stuff with OpenSSL. Yeah, those would be all features of OpenSSL, not of XtraBackup. Yeah. All right. Then my last one here. What I really wanted to show, I had many clients that were trying to do this functionality. They wanted to migrate into RDS, and so I was like, well, let's talk about that really quick, because RDS is the one who actually created, in a sense, this functionality. And they created this functionality, and they recognize Percona XtraBackup as essentially a leader for backup in the ecosystem. So they have the functionality on their side. So all you have to do is take my backup, and I'm going to send it to an S3 bucket. And then after I've created my backup in that S3 bucket, I can then go into my RDS console and click restore from S3, and AWS will read this XB stream file. And they will decompress it, they will prepare it, they'll go through all the steps and put it into an RDS and spin an RDS up for you, which I think is pretty neat. Okay? I'm not dogging on XB Cloud, but you can't use XB Cloud to do this. XB Cloud is more for your own backups, because XB Cloud breaks up the files into a different way that AWS can't read. So that's why this tool is still XtraBackup piping directly into AWS. The biggest gotchas that I discovered with this, didn't run this until client number 2. They had a 3 terabyte data set that we were moving. AWS limits you to 10,000, essentially shards, fragments, whatever you want to call it, when you upload large files. And since this is a single file that we're uploading, we can only break that into 10,000 pieces. And so the default, I think, size for their pieces is like 50 megabytes or something. So if you do the math, then you have to tell it, I need bigger pieces. So if you have a database that you're moving that's going to be more than, I think, about 3 terabytes, you have to use this parameter that says expected size. You just tell it, how big is my database? About a 5 terabyte database or whatever. I tell it here, and then that makes S3 change the size of the bucket size or the shard size, and then it uploads fine. So I ran into that problem twice. I was like, why is this not uploading? You go into, I had to debug. I had to debug into S3 copy command. I'm like, what's going on? There's this cryptic message about you ran out of 10,000 bytes, 10,000 things. I'm like, 10,000? What are you talking about? And then of course I snowballed into more and more and more stuff. I was like, oh, got it. Now it makes sense. Yes. You could do that too. I put that in here too. For backups that are larger than 5 terabytes, you would have to use split, because a single S3 file can't be larger than 5 terabytes. So if you did have a 6 terabyte data set, you would need to split it first, which would make like XB stream 01, 02, and then AWS still recognizes that pattern of 01, 02, 03, some kind of sequentialness, and then they will rejoin it on their side first to create that 6 terabyte XB stream, and then they will decompress it and create your XtraBackup for you. Yeah.
Okay, so you just plunge your 0 of your XB stream during the restore process.
Yeah.
It knows to look for sequential.
Yeah, their system understands to look for something sequential. Yeah.
So we ran into that too with the expected size issue, and we haven't found any downside to overestimating.
No, I didn't either. I neither. My client that had a 3 point whatever terabyte, I think I calculated 4 just for over. Yeah, it didn't really. It just made their sizes bigger, but it still kept us. I was like, I don't want this. That was like our 6th attempt, and each attempt was taking like 9 hours to copy over, and I was like, feel like this customer's getting a little irritated that this is not working on the first try, and so I was like, I'm just going to overestimate, and then it worked, and then it was fine. So yeah, there were no problem. 2 little screenshots just so that you can see when you go into the AWS UI, there is a button that says restore S3, and then you say the bucket where it exists, and then you can prefix it. So you can actually store more backups inside the same bucket if you want to use, and then say, I want to use that particular one to do my restore. And then you go through the whole process of setting up RDS external replica and replicate all the data into your RDS and then do your cutover, which is exactly what we did with that one particular client.
So prefix, is that what you're talking about with the specifying?
Yeah.
So if we had like an extra stream of it, we had multiple parts.
Yeah, it would be for multiple files. So like if it says it's optional, so what it's going to do is if you leave this blank, it's going to look for basically just one file. And if you have multiples in there, it's going to kind of, which one do I pick? Kind of thing. So if you were using one bucket to keep all of your backups in it, then you would need to use the prefix here to basically say, whoops, to say, I want you to restore it. So if you had a May 23rd, 21, 22, if you had like daily backups and you would say, I want to restore that specific one, then you would prefix with that. Otherwise, you'd have to create a new bucket with just that one backup. Could be tedious. You might not have permission, whatever. Just wanted to show that complete example.
Yeah, I've restored a multi part like that. So
It should be. So when you do this prefix part, their tool is automatically looking for .tar, .xb